Picture this. I turn my key step into my own cabin, and there's a stranger in my late wife's black sweater, live streaming from my living room. Like it's her studio. She lifts my wife's locket to the camera, calls my place abandoned, then looks me dead in the eye and says I'm trespassing in my own house. The deputy shows up with his phone filming like he's an influencer, nods at her printout and says, "This sounds like a civil matter." Yeah, that happened. My name's Jake Miller, Cascade Ridge, Oregon, and 8 months before that day, my wife Eve died in the bedroom at the back of the hall. That cabin was our promise, our storm night engagement, our coffee at sunrise place, and I guarded it like a heartbeat. I'm an IT security guy. I troubleshoot problems for a living. But grief is the kind of problem that doesn't blink when you stare it down. I set out 2 cups every morning out of muscle memory, still fold her sweater on Sundays because my hands forget she's gone. You know what I mean. So imagine stepping into that memory palace and seeing a towel-clad stranger slip out of your bedroom, seeing your wife's pictures scattered face down the urn, missing from the mantel like a tooth yanked out of a smile. The woman calls herself Tara Whitfield, president of the Community Safety Guild, and she's doing a live security education at an abandoned property. She talks in buzzwords that make people nod, even while their gut is screaming vulnerability, mapping best practices, homeowner negligence. I tell her to shut it down, put the locket down, and get out. My voice lower than my pulse, but she raises a finger to her audience and says, "See teachable moment?" The deputy Cole Hargrove glances at her packet like it's Holy Writ, then at my license, with the address that matches the door he just walked through, and tells me to relax. If you've ever been made small in a room you built with your own hands, you know the heat that crawls up your neck. Then Nina Alvarez walks in with coffee, like some kind of guardian. Says she knows me, knows Eve, knows the frog planter, where the spare key is, because Eve showed her during a rough week. For the first time all afternoon, the floor stops tilting. Hargrove asks Tara to step outside. She leaves smiling like the last person at a poker table holding everyone else's chips. The door clicks shut, and I finally breathe. Then my eyes find that empty mantel again, and the breath goes thin. The urn, gone. Nina and I search everywhere. Cupboards under couches. The crawl space hatch, nothing. Rage doesn't shout in me, it freezes. So I pull out the one thing I never told anyone about a dumb smart camera I hardwired into a fake carbon monoxide detector in the rafters. No signal to sniff, no battery to die, no app begging for updates. We scrub the footage shoulder to shoulder at the kitchen table. 2 weeks in, fast forward, and on day 4, there's Tara casual as a weather report. Carrying the urn onto the porch and dumping my wife's ashes into a contractor bag. A man holds open. Nina makes a sound I don't have a name for. I just stare, hands flat. Nails biting my palms, some part of me stepping into a hallway I've never walked and sprinting. We keep watching. Tara has been live streaming auctions from my living room, selling off Eve's scarf, her chipped honeymoon mug, reading from her diary, and calling it education about sentimental vulnerabilities. On 3 rental sites, I find a listing Eve's threshold room, $400 a night, for an authentic transition experience where people can sleep. Where my wife died with candlelit photos and syrupy reviews from accounts made in the last 6 months, faces stolen from obituary pages. Phantom bookings, phantom legitimacy, phantom empathy. I need something real, so I head to the neighbor's place. Brent Collier, local appraiser with a deer camera habit, is in his driveway, with long lens shots of my cabin laid out like postcards. He stumbles through a story about being hired by Summit Serenity Services to do an appraisal for a grieving homeowner's memorial property. He shows me a glossy contract Denver address. Testimonials the whole professional costume, and I watch his face shift when I tell him he's been conned. He swears it looked legit. $800 cash. Thought he was helping. Back home, Nina has fresh coffee and a kind of steady that settles you, and for a minute I let it. Then I see the ring on her hand, a simple gold band, with a nick you can feel by touch in the dark. I dropped that ring on the cabin steps the day I proposed. I know that nick better than my own fingerprints. Nice ring, I say, like I'm talking to a snake I don't want to spook. She glances, says it was her grandmother's. The lie smooth as glass. I ask to see it. She says it's fragile. She's late. The story changes color between sentences. After she leaves, I open Eve's jewelry box with hands that finally understand what they're looking for. And sure enough, the ring is gone. The pearl studs from our 5th anniversary, gone. The silver bracelet with Eve's initials gone. People say grief makes you paranoid, but sometimes grief makes you precise. I test Nina. I tell her the cabin's too heavy to live in. I might sell money's tight and watch the next night as Tara goes live, teaching how men in transition are vulnerable to relocation pitches and pressure sales, repeating lines close enough to my own that it feels like an echo. That's not boldness, that's coordination. The next week I walk my own house like a crime scene tech and find things no one wants to find in their own walls. A keylogger tucked under the keyboard tray. A pinhole mic drilled into the baseboard. A tracker epoxied under my truck. A camera in a lamp housing a wireless transmitter behind an outlet face like a hidden tongue. Meanwhile, my dumb smart camera keeps recording a quiet witness. No one can jam because it has nothing to say and everything to see. Then comes the punch I still taste. Audio from one of those mics catches Nina months earlier, sitting with Eve, suggesting herbal drops to calm Flutter's soft voice. Big words about natural and gentle saying. The meds mask symptoms instead of addressing root causes. Those drops can mess with arrhythmia prescriptions. And my wife trusted her. I sat on the kitchen floor, forehead to my knees, whispered promise after promise to the air. And when the shaking stopped, I stood up and made a plan. I called it Operation Eve's Roses because I needed a name that was more than anger. I told Nina I was heading to a grief retreat in Arizona, wrote myself confirmation emails, showed her the itinerary. She encouraged me like a coach, offered to watch the place, asked exactly when I'd go and how long I'd be gone, and if I wanted her to water the rosemary Eve loved. While she measured my absence, I wired the house like an airplane. Black box cameras inside, Beam's mics, spliced into the porch light. Run recorders hidden in a false pocket in the fireplace post. Everything hardwired. Nothing to ping. Nothing to sniff. I packed my truck, waved to the pine standing guard, drove to a trailhead, hiked back through the trees, and watched my own house from a blind like I was hunting the animal that bit me. They arrived like a parade. Tara first with a rolling case of lights, Nina next in a black top, with my wife's ring sunning itself on her finger. Then Deputy Hargrove with 2 pizzas and a grin, plus a pair of guys carrying tripods. They opened the champagne I'd been saving for our 10th anniversary and toasted to a job well done. Over 3 days, they held what they called a debrief, and what my recordings turned into a confession, with snacks mapping out 17 operations. Just like mine, picking targets from obituaries and small-town Facebook groups, monetizing grief with phantom rentals, donation drives, live auction merch, and paid consulting for towns scared of the thing they were selling. Hargrove showed them how to funnel complaints to places that would toss them. Nina explained her craft like a teacher emotional dependency arcs, how to become indispensable, when to drop the helpful suggestion that steers the ship. Then she said the quiet part out loud. Timeline was slow. Until I learned Eve's med schedule and got Jake talking about being overwhelmed, then I moved to supplements. You nudge the chemistry, grief does the rest. I found a scrap of paper later in my flannel pocket with my own dull pencil letters. She killed my wife. After that, I did what I do. I built a film, 2 hours of names, faces, bank routes, contract templates, timestamps, their own voices, narrating their own downfall. I posted it everywhere and watched it detonate. Within hours, a hashtag bloomed grief predators, and people poured in with their stories. Different addresses, same script. News anchors said Eve's name on television. The Attorney General said the kind of words you want to hear when action is next. And then it was arrests Nina at Glass Finch. Tara on the highway. Hargrove turning in a badge, a camera no longer loved. The cases moved like weather. Slow, then sudden, and the sentences landed heavy. Nina got life without parole, plus years on years for fraud and conspiracy. Tara got 25, Hargrove got 12, and lost the pension. He probably already spent in his head. They found accomplices' accounts, shell companies with glossy About Us pages written in jargon like prayer. The state passed laws that finally made sense verification before anyone manages a memorial property. Harsher penalties for targeting families in mourning, a hotline for when your gut says the helping hand is a hook. The community showed up like family volunteers, restored the cabin plank by plank. Neighbors combed the landfill where Tara dumped the remains and brought back most of Eve so we could lay her under the cedar she loved. We planted pale pink roses there, the kind she called ballerina dresses for bees. You'd think that's the period at the end of the sentence. It isn't. 6 months after the verdicts, a Phoenix detective called about a copycat near a base military families during deployment, and then he said they found medical files that matched my wife's in a suspect's stash. So here's where I'm at. Do I dig in again or let ghosts sleep? Do I take what's left of me and go to war one more time, or do I choose quiet and guard what I've rebuilt? If you were me, what would you do? Have you seen this costume before? Greed dressed up as care, rules worn like a mask. Drop your take in the comments. Push back, agree. Tell a story you've witnessed, and if you think someone in your circle needs to hear how these cons actually move, hit like and share. Say where you're watching from and the place you'll never let anyone call abandoned.